Hello, my name is Graham Thane, and welcome to my screencast for EdTech 513. This presentation will try to address the problem of who is responsible for the start of the First World War. World War I started in the summer of 1914 and ended in the fall of 1918. It wasn't known as World War I back then because no one realized they would be fighting another world war only 2.5 decades later. Instead, they called it the Great War. People at the time thought this because the massive scale and the number of major countries involved that this would be the war to end all wars. In 4 years of fighting, almost 10 million people died and 21 million were wounded. Soldiers lived and fought in some of the most horrible conditions imaginable. This was also a war that was fought with new weapons like the machine gun, but fought with old school tactics. Two sides dug in trenches and would attack each other's lines, and over the 4 years of fighting, the trench line moved very little. So who is ultimately responsible for all the death and destruction of World War I? Looking back at the history of the war, a list of the primary suspects can be easily drawn up. These suspects include the policy of imperialism that the major European powers practiced prior to the start of the war. Along with imperialism, militarism was widely adopted throughout Europe and most developed countries of the time. If the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was prevented, would that have stopped the war from occurring? Germany. Germany was the largest and most powerful country on the losing side. Is it simply a matter of blaming them? For years leading up to the war, European countries were aligning themselves with one another in case they were attacked by another country. We'll look at the impact of these agreements and if they contributed to the war. To determine who or what is ultimately responsible, we need to determine the contributions of each of these suspects to the start of the war. Ask yourself, was it one single act or was it a combination of these suspects? The first suspect, imperialism. Imperialism is a relationship between two countries that intentionally benefits one over the other. For decades leading up to World War I, European countries were actively claiming territory in the form of colonies around the world. By gaining these territories, imperialism would lead to nationalism, which is a strong sense of pride in one's country. Europeans would not want to look weak to other European countries, so more territories were claimed. And by the turn of the century, tensions were very high between European countries. The second suspect, militarism, is related to imperialism. European countries needed large militaries to protect their colonies. Huge advances were taken in the development of weapons prior and during World War I. These weapons would include machine guns, airplanes, tanks, and gas warfare. The third suspect is the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand on June 28, 1914. Franz Ferdinand was the heir to the Austrian-Hungarian throne. While on a state visit to Sarajevo, Yugoslavia, with his wife, he was shot and killed by the Serb student Gavrilo Princip. This event is declared as the spark that ignited the powder keg in Europe. Germany, the fourth suspect. Should she be held solely responsible for starting World War I? According to the Treaty of Versailles, the peace treaty that ended World War I, they are. Within this treaty, Germany was the only country that had to sign the War Guilt Clause, essentially admitting that they were responsible for the war. Germany didn't fight alone though, and there were obviously two sides. There were many countries that fought on both sides during the 4 years. However, there were three main countries on either side. On the one side, you have the Triple Alliance. They consisted of Austria-Hungary, Germany, and Italy. And on the other side, you have the Triple Entente. They had France, Great Britain, and Russia. The fifth and last suspect are the secret agreements signed between European countries. The years leading up to the war, European countries signed secret agreements with one another. Essentially, they agreed to watch each other's back in case they were ever attacked. How did these agreements fall into place? The event that triggered the secret agreements was the previously mentioned assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand on June 28, 1914. With the assassination, Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia on July 28, 1914, because it was a Serb assassin that killed Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Serbia had an agreement with Russia, so on July 31, 1914, Russia mobilizes its army against Austria-Hungary. Austria-Hungary had an agreement with Germany, so on August 1, 1914, Germany declares war on Russia. Russia then demands the neutrality of Russia's allies, France. France refuses and mobilizes, so on August 3rd, Germany declares war on France. On August 4th, 1914, Germany invades neutral Belgium on its way to invading France. Great Britain, who had an agreement with Belgium, declares war on Germany. With so many European superpowers at war with one another, the Great War has started. So, who is responsible for starting World War I? Which of the 5 suspects should be blamed? Imperialism, European countries acquiring more and more territories throughout the world. Or was it the military buildup of all of these countries? Was it the assassination of Franz Ferdinand the only contributing factor that started the war? Should Germany be held solely responsible? Or was it the secret agreements that fell into place after the assassination of Franz Ferdinand? I think it is safe to say that all 5 suspects played a part. However, Germany should not have been the only country to blame for the war. All European countries played a part in starting the war. Thanks for watching.